We move on to the agenda item, if you're watching this on cable, to the feasibility study of the Jericho Highway Department building with Matt Young, who's the consultant who the town has hired to take a look at the building, and he has come back with his results. There was a little bit of good news. You talked a little bit about, I was really reaching for the good news on page 3. A metal sandwich panel roof, which leaks, although the panels are in good condition, except for the part that leaks by the ridge cap. So that was the only good thing I saw in the whole report, frankly.
Eric, why is this killing too small?
You can zoom in.
Yeah, just hit your plus button. You've got something in the, oh, you've got a little shadow of the light in the way, so we can't see it, but you should be able to.
Well, yeah, I'm doing that, but then it disappears.
That's weird.
I'm completely right, just.
That's it.
Really weird.
You drag it.
You press control and then the wheel. That was zoom in.
Why did it spin around? There we go. Move it. Reduce it again. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. That's so big, it's cut off the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this.
Yeah, maybe just turn that back a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Sometimes it's some. Oh, I have to. And I moved it, but it's a lot. Come on, buddy, you can do it. There we go. Of course, the screen sharing is in the way. Okay, here we go.
You can, I mean, with John, you can minimize the Zoom thing so that they're not in your area.
Why did I come back?
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, Matt, take it away.
Well, the way I laid this out, I guess the best way to look at it is if you go to the table of contents, and you guys tell me how deep you want to get into this, because this could be a long conversation, or
I mean, we have the
Summarize.
report, so I don't know that we need the report read to us.
Right.
But for the sake of people listening at home and for the recording, maybe just like an overview,
Sure.
like a. Maybe not a 1,000,000-foot view, but maybe not a 1-foot view,
Sure.
like a 1,000-foot.
Okay. So, this is called a feasibility study, and a feasibility study, the object to that is to look at the existing conditions, and you look at, what's feasible in order to be able to make changes or improve the situation that's out there. So what I did is I spent a morning out there looking at all the existing conditions, taking a lot more pictures than really what you see here. And what I tried to do is just kind of capture more of the highlights of some of the issues. And then if you go over to the go to page 9, that really summarizes, and I broke it down into 3 categories. One category is kind of the exterior facility of the building itself. And
If I could just, because then again, because the cable's running. For exterior, some of the things that caught my eye: does not meet current snow load, no longer airtight, not adequate for current size trucks, not deep enough to accommodate truck length. Don't know where bathroom waste goes.
Yeah, I like that. The truck thing was interesting. Like, so we, just so people know, I didn't know this until I read this part of the report. So we have to order our trucks special. They typically come with 14-foot boxes on them. We have to order them special so that they come with 13-foot boxes so that they can fit in our town garage.
Yeah,
I
so
did not know that.
Yeah, so you're spending more money for a smaller truck.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, the guys can have less load, so they have to make more trips coming back every time. So it's about like 2 cubic yards less, every time that, so that's a lot more gas, a lot more return trips. We're making, so, on top of that. So that's the kind of in general of all the exterior
Sorry, Wayne, I
thing.
just wanted to point out.
Oh, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah,
Needs new water well.
yeah, the water you have out there is not drinkable. It's not, you can't even use it for eye wash. In fact, they have another package set up for the eye wash system. But the water is not drinkable and it's not.
Does it? And that's the new well, like, could we get that evaluated by somebody to see? I mean, cause maybe it's the building itself and the connection to it, right?
Well, no, it's actually, there's another municipality that ran into the same thing, and we actually ended up drilling a brand new well. Because we knew that their existing garage that they had bad water, so building a new garage, we knew that the existing well wasn't sufficient enough to handle the pressure and the loads for the new facility. But two, their existing water was not drinkable either. So we did drill a new well that ended up coming up with an water filtration system that all tied together. So it's not just the building itself, it's your groundwater. And unfortunately, there's parts in Vermont where you'll get a lot of sulfur, you'll get a lot of iron, and things like that. And in those situations, they have to be pre-treated.
And then the final thing in this exterior section was lack of stormwater management. So that seems relatively minor compared to no water to drink in the building. But anyway, I was just astounded by this list. I mean, there's all sorts of circles on it, like, oh my God.
Yeah, there's none at all, because one, it's the building was grandfathered in. You have one building that was built in the early 70s, another one that was in the early 2000s. And big things happened since then. There's the snow load that building codes have changed drastically. Then the Vermont Energy Efficiency Code has changed drastically.
Sure.
Since then. So we know that the building you have out there now is, every time you turn on the heater, you're basically heating the outside.
And then on the interior, the ADA bathroom, we knew about the heating system. I'm assuming one is up and running at this point, John?
Yes.
The new one?
Well,
The temporary one.
no, at this point, we are still waiting to get the pad and propane tank installed.
When's that gonna happen?
Paul, you still out there?
I am. So
Did you-
I am working with Aaron from Mountain Air, and he and I are both on top of AmeriGas, and we're not getting any response. So Aaron reached out to them yesterday and was going to be a little bit more harsher to get this done. And he's going to reach back out to me and let me know by Monday, hopefully Monday. If that's the case, we'll just go with somebody else.
Thank you.
Everything else is up and running. It's all set, all ready to run. We just need the gas tank.
Thank you.
If, I know this is awful to say, I'm sure you'll figure out and they'll come and they'll get a system set up in time. But could we connect a 100-pound propane tank to it in the meantime, if we get into a pinch?
I don't know
Right.
if we can. I would imagine you could, because everything is all connected.
Well, I think,
That's what I'd do, or me.
yeah, I think, well, Steve, maybe you can speak to that. I think one of the things I've learned through this process is that there are required setbacks between the building and where fuel is stored. Is that right?
Definitely, yes.
So I guess what I'm thinking, like, I'm with your plan, like, we could go ahead and do that tomorrow, but.
I mean, you'd
Would
only
be
do it in an
potentially-
emergency, but
Right.
I'd rather do that than,
Yeah, okay, well, let's get back to Matt's report.
Yeah.
So we're on this interior section. Anything else jump at you? The ADA bathroom, the heat, the eye wash, we knew there was a prepackaged unit, which I guess effectively is as effective, but just not ideal. Any other things really jump out on the interior section?
Well, item 4 is in relation to what you guys were talking about. The concern that I have, even with the new moldings that you're installing now, because again, the building is so inefficient insulation wise, it's, if it's 20 degrees outside, guys open up those doors, that heat is out of there, it's gonna take another 2 hours for it to reach its temperature, so. There's a concern about, again, you're gonna be burning up a lot of fuel to try to maintain even a temperature that guys could work in.
Yeah, we realize that with eyes open, that this is
Yeah.
a very temporary thing to just get us to the
Right,
new.
yeah,
Okay, and then as far as life safety,
yeah. Yeah, there's no carbon monoxide sensors at all in the building, and that's pretty important. There's no Plymouth vent is the tailpipe exhaust system. So if a vehicle needs to be maintained.
oh, sure,
Yeah, you have to have a Plymouth vent, and that way it gets exhausted out properly. The floor pit, that's against the code, so that's one of the reasons why you guys are looking at this.
right,
Let's see, no welding zones for, there's no partitions for weldings, welding areas. There's no hazards of material storage. You guys are lining up really like your old oil right along the wall there. I put that in the picture in here. The other one's lack of drinking water. There's no fire sprinkler, and then really lack of employee showers and lockers. That's just to name a few things. So, and I'll just be candid. I've had several conversations with you guys, and one of the things that, as I've kind of drilled into this, and I've looked at other facilities throughout Vermont. This facility is critically in a bad shape, really bad shape. And, my cover letter, I talk about what my walkaway with after doing all this is that you need a new facility. It's not just to be able to maintain the employee staff that you have now, but to be able to even hire somebody. Because there's no way I would want any of my kids to work in that facility. There's no way.
I remember you said
And
that,
I wouldn't even want my daughters to work there. So, you guys don't have any female, employees or candidates. I don't think they'd want to consider working there because the bathroom's in a pretty horrible situation. And the bathroom alone is so small, sometimes guys have to go to the bathroom with the door open. They can't fit in there, physically fit in there. I'm a small guy, I use the bathroom and I can barely fit in there. It's a closet. So there's
very small.
Yeah, and then the other issues I have, I'm concerned about is I'm really concerned about just the town's liability on the insurance side, the workers' comp and safety. That's the other thing you guys need to think about. Because for your guys that have to basically hurdle over equipment every time they want to go from one bay to the other bay, that's dangerous. With the tools, with cords, and with plow trucks, plows, there's just no walk around at all. Between the the vehicle from the plow fins and all the way to the back side. That's why they have to have the doors open a lot of times. And then if you have to have the doors open, then you just defeated the purpose of trying to have multi-million-dollar worth of equipment maintained and ready to go. When that storm hits, you want your equipment ready to go and preheated and cleaned and ready to be out, as soon as possible. So the next step, what I did is I did a look at the site itself, and we had a discussion about, what is the viable site location? And yeah, if we bring that one up. And on this hard copy, I inserted like 11 by 17, so it's easier to kind of look at. If you could zoom in a little bit. Yeah. I kind of segregated the site into 4 zones. If you move down.
On that parking lot on the bottom there, right? The bottom right.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh,
Yeah, right there.
Drunk driver, sorry.
Go down to the area where the existing is.
So we can see both areas.
Yeah, there you go. So
Okay.
one of the things I did look at is, okay, well, if you were to site a new building, where would that be? And I calculated the areas for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to calculate what a disturbed square footage or acreage would be that affects your Act 250. So that's one of the reasons why I did that. So I was trying to do multiple things at the same time. But if you were to site a building on this side over here, My concern would be that you would pigeonhole yourself in the future if you were to add on to the bay. And I always tell the municipality is when you site your building, you know, make sure you have enough room to go 1 or 2 bays more down the road, because you don't want to be at a point where you pigeon yourself in, you're going to spend more money in the future trying to grow. So the most logical spot seemed to be what I call the area B up in the top there. And you can see where we also did some temporary little test pits out there.
Mhm.
And then in the report, I show you the pictures of the test pits, what it looks like. One of the things that really have hurt municipalities in the past is not knowing what's below the ground foundation, whether it's wetlands, ledge, bad soils. So you guys have excellent soil. In fact, you can actually make a lot of money because there's so much sand here. There's a ton of sand there. It's really good sand. So to me, area B seemed like the most viable spot to put the building here, because it would give you plenty of space to grow in this direction. And then I also looked at area C. Concern I had with area C was, I know that there was a power line that's buried that's going through that area that goes towards the solar farm. And then plus this area was a little bit smaller, and I was actually more concerned about the grade and everything else that goes with it. And then
It dropped right off at the back.
and it drops right off there too, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're starting to think about building siding, you also want to maintain a couple other thoughts. Is okay, where you're going to have your septic and where you're going to have your storm management. And you want the building footprint to be higher than everything else. Some projects where we couldn't achieve that, and you spend a lot of money hauling in to raise the building pad up. And you guys are in a better situation where I believe that there's a big pile of material here. This needs to be analyzed, but there's a good chance that we could actually use that if we need to for base material. Now, Aaron told me last time that they couldn't use it for the roads for some reason. But I said, I think we could probably use it for the building pad itself, though. So I looked at it and I took some pictures of it. So if you can go to a picture where there's another, where I kind of laid out the building. But that's the same kids, that's the, so
The one here.
yeah, this is the one here, yeah.
Okay.
So here, this building layout is based on what I call is a 10-bay building that includes 1 wash bay. And we'll go to the picture. There's another sheet that shows you the programming, but that's basically it's 242 feet long from here to there. And it would give you enough room up the top to be able to accommodate expansion. And then we did a test pit over here because I wanted to see what that looked like if this was to be a potential septic leach field. So that looks really good right over here. And then possibly over here, a spot for a future storm drain pond, retention pond over here. Now, of course, as you go further in design, a lot of this could change, but these are just ideas I'm capturing now so that at least we got the cost, captured at this point. Any questions before I move on?
No, you were anticipating this when we met, John, you, Paula, and I think. You had kind of suggested some of this might be where it would make sense, at least first blush. That's what you had said back then. So this seems consistent with that. Where do people park when they pull up in the morning?
They could park. You could create something like a parking spot area here or this here, and this could scooch over, a little bit further north too, to accommodate that. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when we did the test pit, it's probably a good 8 feet lower than where this grade is at. So that means some of this stuff will have to be shoved over in order to, create the pad. But at the same time, I've tried to get to a point where we're not, eliminating, a lot of trees either, and trying to be sensitive to that. keeping that in mind, you also want, there's a 90-foot magic number that you kind of want to look in the front. And that's why you see the 90-foot dimension. What that allows you to do is that typically there's going to be a 40-foot concrete pad in front of all the bays. And then that gives room for the equipment to sit outside, like let's say in the summertime, but then it gives them plenty of turnaround space in the front without interrupting, traffic that could be on the roadway itself. And that, you could, again, that could be flexible, but I wanted to at least see what the 90.
Right, because we're just talking about concept tonight, so.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. So if you go to the programming part, what I did is just from past experience with other municipalities and their equipment counts, is came up with a general concept of what size building I think that you guys are going to need, to start off with. And like I had said earlier, yeah, that's a kind of a general, it's kind of like notes for you guys, what, as you're going through the planning stages, what to keep in mind. And if you can go to the next sheet where it has the programming floor plan. Yeah, right there. So the square on the bottom, actually it's kind of yellow on mine, but anyway, that designates as one of the bays, which I call the administration and office component. And then you have 8 bays. Well, sorry, you got 8 bays called 8, actually 8, 9, 10. So 10 bays. You've got a mechanics bay, which is the first one. And typically these bays are 22 feet by 68 feet. That's the ideal size. And then you have apparatus bays 1 through 8. And the way that number came up was that you want to typically have one bay that's designated purely just for the mechanic to have space in, because usually you'll have a piece of equipment that sits there much longer. And then some municipalities actually have 2, because that way they can, with the guy, he's waiting for parts for one, he can work on another piece of machinery and he can kind of swap back and forth.
How many other towns have 2? I did notice that in the report.
Yeah, I'd say town of St. Albans has 2, but what they did is they have one that has the lift on it, but the other one is basically kind of a floor mount. Yeah, in mechanics bay. So it's really entirely up to you guys what you guys want to do in the future. The rule of thumb is you typically want to have an apparatus bay for each plow truck, like the full-size plow truck, so that they're there, they're ready to go, they're in tempered temperature. And so if there's an emergency, there's a big snowstorm coming, the trucks are ready to go. They're warmed up and they're ready to go. And then you add one more bay for like another large piece of equipment that needs to, sit in there and either be in a tempered space. And then I included one extra bay, actually one more bay. I said, so for that, like, because some of these the bays are long enough so that you can double stack, vehicles in there. So like if it's like smaller 350 type, size truck, they can double stack those.
The little plows.
Little plows, yeah. Yeah, they can double stack those in there. And then it gives you one extra bay for an extra. And then you have the wash bay itself. And the wash bay right now is kind of planned as being a drive-in and back out type of scenario situation.
And we mentioned this briefly during that meeting weeks ago. Is that big enough for a fire truck to go in? No.
I don't see why not. Well, it's the overhead door, your clearance is going to be 16 feet wide and 14 feet high. So that should be pretty close.
Okay, just asking.
Yeah. And then if you see the profile on the bottom, that's kind of a roof line profile I did for you, so you have an idea what the clearances would be. And the most cost-effective way to build this is a shed slope roof, is single slope. And then typically what you'll have is about a 20-foot clear in the front, then you'll have about a 12-foot clear all the way in the back. And a lot of times what happens with the apparatuses is that if you read, what I said on apparatus bay 1, you typically will have like a little welding staging and a charging station, you know, like near the front there. And then apparatus number 2, you'll have storage, and then has some hazardous storage material there. And then on apparatus 3, I basically kind of identified some of the systems infrastructure you want, which is going to be, you know, electrical drops, air drops, and some water drops, so that guys don't have to go drag cords all over the place. And typically what we do is on all the odd number bays, they'd have, you know, water drops and air drops, so that, you know, that service is available for swinging both directions in both bays. And with the 20-foot clear in the front, it does allow, if they need to, you know, put the dump up, you'll have that clearance to do that. So if they need to work on the dump and hydraulics and things like that. Questions?
Matt, you mentioned having the part of the reason for having the additional bay, aside from convenience, is growth, right?
Yeah.
As we acquire more machinery or plowing obligations grow over time, there's a chance to grow into it versus being in a immediately having to build an addition.
Yeah, you know, and I told you guys the cheapest cost in this building is the bay. That's just wide open square footages. And, you know, your most expensive is going to be your wash bay and your office area. Per square foot, that's going to be the most costly space. And I do not recommend you guys saying, okay, well, we have 7 doors now, let's just build 7 doors. That's to me, that's poor planning, because you're either someday, you know, going to order another truck, or, you know, things like that. And it's just a matter of, I think it's good prudence to at least get 1 more bay extra. If you want to go 2 bays extra, you can do that too. But I kind of try to be a little bit more conservative here and figure that 1 more bay extra will be good at this point. Then as the growth happens, then you can add additional bays.
And the grader fits in any of these,
Yes, it will, yeah.
which it barely does now without greasing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, or Matt, you didn't, I almost called you Steve Young again. That's our quarterback. You
Similarities, I know.
You did an inventory of equipment, and the other critical point I remember discussing was just being able to accommodate equipment that's currently being stored outside.
Yeah.
That's being degraded by sun, weather.
Yeah.
Concern around the long-term longevity of the hydraulic hoses.
Right.
Those particular vehicles.
The other thing though is just salt. I mean, it just kills everything. People don't realize what it does. And just, you know, having a wash bay is going to pay for itself so quickly, because you're able to wash and maintain things. But salt is it's just horrible. I mean, you know, it's just one of those things where it's just, to me, it's no different than if you were gonna do oil changes in your vehicles. These vehicles have to be washed down thoroughly. They have to be done with hot water. You can't just do cold water, you know, with that, but they have to be maintained just as well as they're being maintained, you know, mechanically.
And then you go on to permitting.
So I went into the permitting page, and there's a copy of my correspondences with the state of Vermont.
And this was good news.
This is very good news, yes. I want to at least get to know right off the bat, do we have to deal with Act 250? And your project, you do not. One of the main reasons is because being a municipality, you have a 10-acre disturbance, you know, allowance, I guess,
Yeah.
to call it, and you're gonna be way underneath that.
And then the wetlands?
In the wetlands, we talked about that too, and I actually ended up talking to Dory over there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so her and I had extensive conversations.
Great.
We really don't foresee any issues, but I think it would be prudent to have a walkthrough with her sometime. Just to get boots on the ground, or, you know, so she can look at it and just confirm. There's nothing on the state of Vermont saying our maps, you know, regarding wetlands. You've got some north of you, got some south of you, but. You know, the area where it's proposed site, you're pretty clear. But you should still have have someone come in and take a look at that. There's no floodplain issues. There are no uncommon species issues to worry about. Especially the fact that you don't have to go through the Act 250 or Act 248. But you will have to, you know, have a permit for the stormwater, wastewater, the DFS permit. And then I just assume that any local jurisdiction, the permits would be waived. So get that. Discuss amongst yourself how you want to manage that.
Yep.
And then the next page, what I did is based on the programming, I did a cost estimate. And, you know, of the typical structure, what's been done in the past. And so that you guys have an idea, well, you know, if this goes to bond vote, how much do we need to ask our citizens to approve? If you scroll, I guess, upwards, downwards, here you go. The bottom line comes out to $4,645,000. And that would include what I call is all of the bricks and mortar costs of building to building, design fees, project management fees, the permits, the insurance. The $8,000 insurance would be, I'd highly recommend that the town carries the builder's risk on this project. It's always a lot less if the owner carries it than if the builder does it. So all of the other municipalities have always carried their own, you know, they'll get a rider for it. It's a lot cheaper for you guys to buy it than the builders.
And the contingency of 5%, is that customary or a little low?
It could vary. I mean, it depends on the how much unknowns there are. But to me, contingency tends to be more of a confidence, you know, meter. So as an estimator, if you look at my contingencies at 5%, I'm pretty confident in the cost because of the historical costs that I have from other facilities. And then if you look in the details, you know, sometimes the biggest unknowns could be what I would call is we call it the FF&E, which is the fixture, furniture, and equipment. And these are things that you as a owner may need to have, whether it's lifts, compressors, welders, office furniture, things like that. So I listed all the assumptions that I made. You guys can go through here and you can nix, add, you know, that's your prerogative.
Did you just say that those pieces of equipment are part of this estimate? No.
Yes,
you said
it is.
it
I
is.
include, yes. So if you go into the last page of this estimate under category E, I listed like a 20,000 pound vehicle lift, the allowance for that $18,000.
Oh, okay. I see.
Office furniture, yeah, kitchen cabinets,
All right,
things like that.
I didn't read that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then, of course, you're more than welcome to increase the contingency. If it's entirely up to you. That's your prerogative. That's not mine.
There's no wood in this building,
No, you've got some rough carpentry blocking, but very.
but
Yeah,
there's
it's a-
metal studs and all that sort of.
Yeah, it's a type 2 structure. It's a non-combustible sprinkled building. Yeah, it's a pre-engineered metal building.
Did this? I don't want to pick up the weeds too much, but does it include like a shower and that kind of thing?
It does, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I kind of balance your facility between the town of St. Albans and the town of Georgia. You guys are sort of like right in the middle of those two.
Population wise.
Well, even needs, you know, the bay sizes. So for instance, I think your building ended up being like one bay larger than town of Georgia. Whereas, you know, it's like 3 bays smaller than, you know, town of St. Albans. So it's, yeah. And I mean, and you guys can come to your own conclusion. You can say, you know what, Matt, I think you're a little too conservative and we may need more bays. And that's entirely up to you. Yeah, so I made a lot of assumptions at this point.
When you did your walkthrough, were there members of the highway department there, and did you bend their ear, or they bend your ear, or?
I did, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is, yeah.
So you did have a sense of, this is what you did talk enough with them to have a sense, this is how many bays would kind of work for us.
Right, yeah, and I've also
Because we're
learned.
out of it. I mean, I've only been in the building 3-4 times.
Yeah. Yeah, and I looked at what you have currently, and I looked at how we analyzed it, the needs for the other communities. The kind of the rule of thumb. Because that kind of dovetails over, let's talk about, I guess we go into scheduling a little bit. I did put a little bit of schedule in there, and part of my recommendation was to try to get this moving sooner rather than later. And the concern that I have is that if you were to even go as fast as you could on this project, you're still out until February 2026 before the building is even available.
I saw that.
So that's 3 years out still. So if you're to go.
Yeah, I just want to say explicitly.
Well, it's 2 years
I
out.
just want to say explicitly with the
Yeah.
camera on, the select board has not adopted this schedule.
Yeah. But
Yeah, right, even if we just hopped right on it, we're talking about 23 years from now.
Yeah.
Before the trucks are actually rolling in.
right, yeah,
Well, 2 years and 3 months.
yeah,
Okay,
But yeah,
yeah, I mean, because your earliest town input, let's say it would be this coming March 24. Then you're gonna need a whole year just to go through the permitting and design simultaneously at the same time. And then by that time, your window of opportunity of starting building construction has really passed.
right.
Because otherwise you're gonna spend oodles of money in winter conditions, and I don't recommend that. So, and really the best time to bid projects is usually between the January, February, March timeframe. You're gonna look at smaller, mid-sized contractors that would be interested in a project like this.
And do you do work as clerk of the works for towns?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've done both ways. So there's sort of like 2 phases to what I would do is that. On item 4 during the design and permitting. I'm also involved in that because. If you want to manage costs, you got to manage design. Because I've seen designers really take it way too extreme, and then all of a sudden you find out you can't afford what was designed.
Yeah.
So if I'm involved with the project, you're gonna believe that it's gonna be make sure that it's designed to the budget and not the other way around. And then once the design is completed, then you go through the bidding phase and you bid it out, to the public. And what I have recommended always is to pre-qualify your bidders. Make sure, shortlist 3 to 5 bidders. And then that way it's an invited bidders. Once you do a full board public, then you better have a pretty good reason why you can't take their number. And to me, you need to have a contractor that's best qualified. It's not always the lowest number, but it's the best qualified number. Then, construction would begin April, May of 2025. You get your C of O by January of 26, and then the move-in would be in February 26. So if you waited another year after that, you can kind of see how that would push everything over again.
I think that for me, the report helped move my frame of reference, because my original notion was, oh, wouldn't it be great in 2029 when we finished paying for this building, we would be able to then roll that debt payment into something else. And the former highway department foreman said, no, that's too far you need to look at this more quickly. But this report just really underscored
current state.
the current state, and I'm embarrassed and frankly I'm embarrassed that I didn't know about the drinking water. That's just absolutely unacceptable. But having said that, there's a lot of steps. We have 90 days before we have to decide what's in the town report. 90 days before we have to decide if it's going to be warned. 90 days before we're going to put it before voters. That's a really fast turnaround time, because prior to that, I know John had a brief conversation with Brian, but Brian, as our treasurer, would need to have a serious conversation with the select board about, okay, can we afford $4.5 million? What does that look like for taxpayers over 20 years, 30, whatever the deal is? We haven't had that conversation before we even went ahead, because then the select board could say, okay, we can afford this, or, you know, we really can't afford this right now. So that's like the first step. Then after that, we've got, maybe that's enough to say, okay, we're going to put this on the ballot or not. But then in the interim, we've got to build support for that vote.
Right,
In March.
we're gonna take a lot of,
And one open house is not a
yeah,
campaign gonna make. So it's gonna take some figuring out to,
and believe it or not, we have stuff to do between now and the next, and 90 days from now, right? Like, so I think this report is great in that it's a little, like Wayne said, it's a little embarrassing, yes, and eye-opening, right? I mean, we do need to be thinking about it.
but for me, as the select board member, I've got to talk to Brian next. That's absolutely the next step. And that needs to be sooner rather than later. And he needs to walk through us. What are the tax consequences for?
Right, what would a
the
bond look
residents?
like? What would, like, okay.
Because now, then we're paying two
$4.5
bonds.
million,
For 4 or 5 years, we're paying 2 bonds.
right?
And then, you know, in 2029, we go down to 1. Now, that's a big pill to swallow, but
Yeah.
I don't know what that cost is.
I don't either.
And I included the cost through 2025 in this estimate. After that, all bets are off. Because who knows what the world's gonna be like at that time?
So costs could come down, is what you're saying?
No, I will guarantee you when I go come down. Spoiler.
And we'll get a volunteer crew in.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea, in town of Georgia, we were in the middle of the pandemic when this was trying to, you know, take off. And just the sub-base insulation alone, it was skyrocketing on a 24-hour basis. We were at a point where, you know, the town's saying, you know, Matt, they're saying they can only hold the price for 24 hours, and the price had already gone up 30%. Okay. I said, this is my recommendation. If the project doesn't go, I said, I would buy the insulation, stock it. If the project doesn't go, you're going to make money because you can turn around and sell it. The project ended up going because we had to finagle, we had to do a lot of value management because, you know, it went beyond the budget, but we were able to figure out all the ways to make it happen. But,
Yeah.
you know, it was just no one, I think our industry, construction industry was just as shocked of how it was crazy during that, how we're interconnected globally with shipping and where things are being made. But
You get one ship stuck in a canal in the Middle East and
you would
the
think,
price of
yeah. So it's.
We need to, maybe you could write down that, you or Paula could write down at the next meeting if we could invite Brian to.
I already did.
Oh, thank you,
Thanks,
Paula.
Yeah, we've been heading into budget season. We're gonna be meeting with Brian with regularity.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
What happens to the existing town garage when a new town garage?
I put that,
Thank you. I
I put
forgot.
that in here, actually. Okay, and item 3, if you were to go to the next page under the recommendation. What I said is I recommend that the existing garage be maintained and just keep it as cold storage, but tempered cold storage. Because you have other equipment out there that needs to get out of the sun, and that would be a good use for that. And I highly do not recommend, you know, demolishing one of the buildings because they're actually both not working together to support each other. So if you take one down, you actually will
Weaken the other.
weaken the other one. So
Would you recommend update it, like repairing the roof?
No, the roof is actually pretty good. The only part that you had the leaks was the ridge.
Right, the ridge.
And the cheapest, and I think I told Paul, I said, the quickest, cheapest way to do it is just. Get ice water shield right on the top and lay the whole thing, the whole length of it. That'll take care of 90% of your leaks. Because that's where the leak is happening.
Yeah.
But that actually is a good roof. It's a sandwich metal panel. And that's the exact same system that I'm recommending for your new garage. The walls and the roof. It's gonna be the most energy efficient and quick way to get the garage built. But no, I think it's definitely an asset that you can still use, and I would use it. But what I would recommend though is demolish the bathroom that's in there, plug up all of your drainage, because we don't know where it's going to.
Right.
Yep. So you can control that. And just purely use it for cold storage.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks so much for this.
You're welcome.
Nice job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
very nice.
Matt,
Welcome.
Matt, I'd be happy to know, Linda was, we were at the VLCT Town Hall in Burlington last week. And Linda, our town planner, I ran into, someone from Georgia who was talking about how great their new
Yes, a bunch of, the
town
staff,
maintenance.
it was not the road crew, but a
The
bunch of staff,
Good.
I had lunch with them and they were very. Excited about their new town garage and spoke very highly about you and about the new building.
Good. Well, I thought George's garage was really bad. That's why I saw you guys, your garage. That was a whole new level.
Great.
Just to let you know.
Won the race to the bottom with town garages.
Yeah. Yeah. But. You guys.
Yeah, well, again, I feel really a little embarrassed. I mean, you knew about the structural issues that we had fixed, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Did some welding to keep the I-beams going, but beyond that, I knew it was sort of messy and old. But my dad used to be a grease monkey, so I went in there and was, oh, this looks a little like the garage that worked in when I was a little kid. But I didn't realize there were so many serious issues in that building.
yeah, and I guess my concerns are more personal, where I just really concerned about the employees.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that if you wait too long, I don't know what you're gonna have left in your highway department. Cause it's a pretty competitive world right now with employment,
Mhm.
and.
Yeah, we mentioned that from the get-go, that we saw one facet of this project having to do with employee retention
Yeah.
too, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we will get back to you, and we may, once we have a little bit clearer on the financial situation we're in, we may press you to be over there for an open house and a walkthrough to go through this report.
Yeah, and you should probably do it a couple of times, so that everyone gets.
Has an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
An opportunity, yeah, absolutely.
and what we have going for us, it'll be cold over there by the time we probably do this in just a month. If we have an open house in November or something, or
Yeah.
December. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Matt, thanks. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay, so the recap though, because this is a monumentally important project. So Matt gives us this survey, gives us a conceptual cost estimate. The select board's going to look into, we post this on the site?
yeah, I think we should.
Why not?
If we do, can we put a caveat on here? The select board has not adopted a timeline. Do you hear that, Paul? I really don't want a timeline out there.
The timeline.
Can you put like the giant red draft letter?
Yeah, something like
Sample, example.
Example.
Because then, we have back push from stuff that isn't even happening yet, so.
What page is that, Wayne, that you don't want on there? Is that the 19, page 19?
It's not even the schedule, it's just that we've decided, this makes it look like there's gonna be a vote March 2024, and I just don't want it to read like that.
Okay,
Watermark on there that says example, so that it's for draft.
Yep.
With watermark.
Sample schedule, something like that.
And then if Brian can meet the select board at the next meeting.
Yep.
Having already digested this a little bit.
Then the board can decide either at that meeting or at a subsequent one meeting next. If we're gonna go ahead and put this on the ballot. I am reminded a little of the other groups that we're not speaking with tonight, and there are dollars associated with that report as well. So,
Oh, I know, yeah.
okay, so is that it on this, town garage?
Yep.
Tonight?